Greetings, fellow racketeers. Welcome to my YouTube channel. This is going to be a short, not really much of a comprehensive review of the new Dragon Ball Super Broly movie. Overall, comparing it to the recent movies in the past, Resurrection F and Battle of Gods, I think this probably ranks the best, even comparing it to the older Dragon Ball movies and Dragon Ball Z movies. This certainly does rank very, very, very highly. Now, in relation to the animation, I think that was probably the biggest talking point from a lot of people, and I think there's probably some controversial opinions, but for the most part, I think the animation was done really, really well. The one thing that I found very intriguing about the movie, and it was jarring at times in terms of the constant switches through different animation styles, where we had more of like the laid-back Japanese style majority of the movie, and we had the more detailed sort of Dragon Ball Z-esque characters being panned in when you're looking at like an intense shot, and we had the CG effects too. So those sort of three art styles are molded in together, and they were switching through constantly. And I think if you don't have like a keen eye for art, or maybe you don't recognize it, it wasn't that bad. But I think for the most part, people did realize the intense CG switches, and people do really go far on harping on the CG in this movie. I don't think it's really that necessary. I think for the most part the CG was absolutely awesome in relation to like the ki blasts, the backgrounds, but the biggest falter for me that the CG had, which a lot of people are talking about, is the character models. I thought the character models looked like something out of Dragon Ball FighterZ, and as a person who really likes Dragon Ball FighterZ, it was too different, and it sort of unimmersed me from the experience when they switched to these really jarring CG effects in relation to the character models looking so different. I didn't mind the background switch ups, I didn't mind the ki blasts glowing and looking all cool, but the character models, it just didn't look right. It didn't suit the movie, especially considering how clean and aesthetically pleasing the other two art styles suited it, rather than the CG and the characters. It just didn't work for me. That's one element of the movie. We can talk about emotional investment in relation to how did I feel about the movie. Did it make me feel emotions? I think it did, especially at the start of the movie. It was very clear to me, and this is confirmed as well, that the script was shortened, and it probably could have been extended for the start of the movie because there were little gaps that were noticeable. But for the most part, considering Dragon Ball for a very long time hasn't been that very good in trying to lure you in and invest emotions, I think that's why the Goku Black arc was so good to me, because it actually made me feel something for the first time in a very long time in the series. Like, last time I felt that intensely about a character was probably like Cell and Gohan in like the Cell games, but Goku Black Arc really made me start investing into emotionally trying to connect with the characters. So it was good that at the start of the movie I really sympathized for Goku, Bardock, King Vegeta even though, you know, he wasn't the best person, but you can understand where he's coming from. Paragus as well. You can understand his need for vengeance because the son got exiled and he just wanted to protect him, but at the same time his protection seemed to be a downfall in the end of the movie, right? So it had some pretty cool moments, especially towards the end of the starting sequence, and this was shown on the trailers as well, where you see Bardock and Goku's mother giving the final goodbye to Goku. And Goku, when he's a little kid, he puts his hand up against the screen matching Bardock's hand, and the soundtrack just melded really well, and it made me feel sad. I was like, oh man, Bardock is a truly heroic person. I feel like they really changed the way that Bardock was perceived, in that you can see where Goku actually had his good side from. I know the story's like, oh, he hit his head, wasn't sent to kill everyone, retcon that, but you know, I think it was pretty cool how they really made Bardock look more like a hero, and he was sacrificing himself for his son. It was really cool. I think Bardock is a character that should really be utilized more in the future, and I really enjoyed seeing him in this movie. talking about more characters, I guess we should probably go into that. I think Frieza's performance in this movie was really, really interesting. I think it was great personally. The sort of comedic jester, Joker type character is something that the Dragon Ball series really needed. In that, sure, especially in Super, it does struggle with taking itself too seriously. But I think Frieza is a character that can get away with that rather than like stupid off characters that it doesn't make sense fitting onto. Frieza at the same time can still remain menacing yet comedic and like, not, I wouldn't say playful, but sort of playful in a menacing, devious manner, in that he enjoys sort of the torture aspect of it too. Which I think really came out in this movie, and the fact that it was like getting beaten up by Broly towards like the end of the movie as well, I found that really, really hilarious. And he turned into golden form, he still got his ass whooped. Yeah. So Frieza was a fantastic character. Broly himself. Okay, so this one's actually quite interesting. Towards the start of the movie, basically the parts where he's not fighting, every part before that, he seems like a sort of reserved, confused. He's an individual that only really has learnt from his father, and he struggles with the outside social interactions and stuff like that, right? So he's a character that is, I wouldn't say calm, because he's pretty much the opposite of that when he starts getting enraged. But he does have some innocence and purity into him, but he just can't control everything that's inside of him, which I think is a pretty cool way to create the Broly character, contrasting to the previous Broly, where it only seemed to be a rage. It only seemed to be this needless sort of jealousy against Goku because that he cried in that capsule. It was the most stupid story in the Broly movie a few years ago, by the way. I think the character was really cool, but the story was absolutely garbage. Anyway, this story worked a lot better for Broly, I feel, because not only did his character evolve in the fighting sense, but he also sort of evolved himself as a Saiyan, saw humanity in him. I think it sort of did get lost in transition once the fight came, in that a lot of people were saying, okay, all that emotion, all the things that he built up to towards the end, it sort of got ruined by the fact that he didn't really have many moments in the fight where he could just like stop and think about what he was doing to bring out that sort of more emotional, individualistic side about him, straying away from his father. But I think after the fact that his father got killed, it just like set him off, and maybe he was on the path to keeping himself in check, but maybe not because of what Frieza did, but he didn't know, of course. So yeah, we don't really know about that. I think definitely he should have been more involved in the later scene of the movie, where Goku ends up visiting on the abandoned planet. I think Broly probably should have said like a few words instead of just smiling and like sort of agreeing to what Goku was saying or disagreeing. I can't really tell with him. But I think he's a character that certainly has a lot of potential, and I'm glad they didn't kill him off, because we also have the possibility with Frieza wanting to recruit him, but at the same time Goku ended up giving him food, resources, so if he's going to be on his side, we don't exactly know. So yeah, it does leave open possibilities for the future, which I'm really excited for. Overall, I think this movie was definitely above average. I think the animation was absolutely superb, and when the art style wasn't like full-fleshed character CG, it was perfect. The feedback on like the ground when it was shaking, the snow when it was erupting, when the water was coming out of the when the water was like tsunami-like and the characters are flying off it and the particles are jumping upwards at you. It looks really, really cool. The impact of this movie visually is just absolutely insane, and I'm super glad that I got to see it. And it is a privilege as a long-term Dragon Ball fan to see that they've finally changed the way that Broly is perceived. I think he's a way more fleshed out character than he was before. Whether you enjoy his new look or his old look, I think a lot of people have been comparing too much in that regard. I think just as an overall character, he has improved. He still is really, really freaky once he gets angry. He still has a tremendous amount of power. But the thing is, this character still has plenty of room to grow, and there's still a lot of untapped potential. Even with his base form, he was standing up to like Super Saiyan God forms, right? So this guy, if Goku and Vegeta were to find a really powerful adversary, maybe in the new arc with Moro, then Broly could be caught up. If he sees that maybe his friends are in danger, he could get really angry and start evolving into scary ways. Maybe Moro can kill him off. Maybe he'll just like flat out one-shot Moro. I have no idea what could happen there. Maybe he won't even be involved whatsoever. But I think that with Broly staying alive is a fantastic way to sort of keep us on the edge of our seats, especially with the universal aspect that we have in Dragon Ball Super now, where we have, you know, other universes with Jiren and, you know, Toppo and characters like that from different areas that can be played with, interact with a lot more. So that's fantastic. So as I said, it's not going to be the most comprehensive review in the world, but yeah, I overall enjoyed the movie. Maybe this is bias, but yeah, it was probably the best Dragon Ball movie. Maybe I'm just saying that because that was, you know, fresh out of watching the movie. But after watching it a couple of times, I think that it probably hits the mark. It's not perfect by any means. I did enjoy Gogeta coming back. I think it was cool. I think the movie had a right amount of comedic value as well. It took itself seriously when it needed to. It was just very well balanced. I think the script was fine. The voice acting was absolutely insane as usual. The sound effects were really cool. The soundtrack was phenomenal, except for the parts during the fight scene where like the guy would just scream like Broly, Gogeta. Like, I found it a little bit awkward. I'm not gonna lie. Maybe I'm alone in that regard, but I think just having a really cool track without the weird screaming in the background of the scene would have been much more immersive. But yeah, maybe that's just me. But yeah, thank you guys for listening to this video. It's not the most advanced sort of review of the Dragon Ball Super movie, but yeah, it's maybe something you guys would be interested in hearing. So yeah, thank you guys for watching. See you later.